good to have you join us. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguele. Culture is an integral part of development, an invaluable tool that allows connection between the past and the present. Also serves as a vehicle of social cohesion and environmental sustainability. If duly harnessed, can propel economic prosperity. To achieve this, cultural experts say there must be promotion of intercultural dialogue and cultural diversity as a tool for social change. As they say, our strength lies in our diversity. Now, for a country like Nigeria with diverse cultures, 250 ethnic groups, and 400 dialects with rich cultural heritage, integrating these cultures into policies is crucial for the nation's development. The National Institute for Cultural Orientation was established by an Act 93 of 1993 as a joint initiative of the Nigerian government and UNESCO during the World Decade for Cultural Development program that was in 1988 to 1997. Now, which emphasized the cultural dimension of development. NICO has the mandate to train cultural officers, motivators, and communicators who would be grounded in Nigerian cultural realities, thereby promoting a blend of our tangible and intangible cultural assets. Now, the federal government has reiterated its support for initiatives that will promote cultural tourism towards creating jobs for the teeming youths. This will require harnessing the nation's rich cultural heritage. But beyond the diversity, what initiatives are there to deepen the nation's cultural diplomacy, open doors to new opportunities, foster collaborations, and promote cross-cultural understanding? On Platform, we'll beam our spotlight on ways of harnessing culture for national development. And our guest is Otumba Biodun Ajiboye. He is Executive Secretary, National Institute for Cultural Orientation. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Fantastic. I'm happy to be here.
We're pleased to have you.
Thank you.
All right, before we bring in our panelists, of course, you know, as a tradition on the program, we'll let you in on who our guest is much properly by reading out his profile. Otumba Biodun Ajiboye is a distinguished individual whose expertise spans multiple fields. As a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Administration with a consummate background in media and advertising, he's a luminary in the industry. In 2023, he played a very crucial role in the elections, the general elections. He was the Assistant Director of Media and Publicity Directorate. And right now, he's pushing really hard as a crusader to promote Nigeria's culture, rich cultural heritage. Well done, Otumba.
Thank you.
All right, our panelist on Platform is none other than our arts and culture correspondent here in NTA, Gufan Shaji Ungwai. Thank you so much for joining us, Gufan.
Thank you for having me, Ruth.
It's a pleasure. All right, Otumba.
Yes, ma.
When we look at Nigeria as a country that is blessed, you know, not just in natural resources, but also the cultural heritage that the nation is blessed with. And then looking at the institute that has been positioned, you know, with a vision which I find very interesting, to be the apex and leading cultural training institute, you know, in the aspect of documentation, research, preserving the assets, everything that has to do with our culture. Now, would you say the institute, from your assumption into office, is on the right trajectory?
Yeah, thank you. I'll tell you very frankly that the way Nigeria was coming, let's look at it from 1960. From 1960 to 1970, we were a very young country that probably had everything going for it. At that time, the agricultural resources were not a lot of people, maybe less than 40 million people. And we're just out of the struggle for independence and all of that. So we were running a fresh country. Everything was okay. Everything was going well. There were no particular challenges. Of course, by 1966-67, a civil war broke out that lasted till about 1969, if I'm correct. Or yes, and well, even with the civil war, didn't take too much toil, apart from the, crisis of the war itself. Post 1970, at that time, even the head of state of Nigeria was like, oh, we had so much money, we didn't even know what to do with it. We didn't see why, as a country, we must harness our potentials to the fullest. And there was no hurry to do that. We were not hungry, there was no starvation, nothing. By 1990, by mid-95, by mid-90s, we already started seeing a lot of things that, oh, we may face, difficult realities as a people. Now, the import of all of this is that while it was rosy for us, we didn't see why we must look at everything we had, tap into our resources to develop our nation so seriously. So whatever cultural ability or resources or potentialities we had didn't mean anything. We can't even continue like this except we reinvent the wheels. Now, how do we reinvent the wheels? We're no longer very comfortable today, even with the oil. We need to now look inward. Our mineral resources was huge, no doubt, very huge, could deliver us from any form of economic doldrum. But again, we're not actually, all hands are not on deck to ensure that we manage that aspect from about 20 years to now properly. Today, we must then look back and see that every aspect of the economy that can reflect the economy is taken seriously. And now we come to what culture can contribute. Now, our negligence of our cultural pride as a people is costing us so much, and will cost us a lot more if we don't arrest the situation.
Now, this is the aspect we're going to be exploring. I just wanted to get a clear perspective if the agency is tilting in that direction of exploring every aspect.
The importance of culture to nation building is not per se in its economic benefit. It is the fact that a country that does not have citizens filled with cultural pride is a country that is likely to collapse at some point. What is cultural pride? The citizens of a country must have a good understanding of who they are, where they are coming from, cultural antecedents, cultural pride, cultural essentialities. That is what makes them humans. That is what makes them competitive among other humans of different nationalities. Take a Nigerian man to England, is inferior. He feels inferior. He feels inferior in himself. God didn't create him to be inferior, but because he has no cultural pride, he was not inculcated with a lot of cultural essentialities. He has lost his sense of pride. However, the Nigerian man is not in any way inferior to a British man. The difference here is that the Nigerian man even feels like imbibing the culture of a British man because of colonialism, religions, and all of that. So we almost have lost it as a people, because a typical man will tell you, when you meet a Nigerian and say, "What's your name?" He say, "I'm Paul Simon. I'm Kudrat Albankudi." That fellow has not told you his cultural identity in any way. A man is cladded in suits from head to toe, and you see him and say, "How are you?" He begins to speak American English, British English. He's lost his identity. So the first thing we need to do as a people is cultural identity. What is cultural identity? Who are you? What is your ancestral lineage? Where are you coming from? What is your ancestral lineage known for in your community? That is what makes a man. How are you dressed? If I see you, would I call you a Congolese or a Nigerian or a Briton?
Otumba, looking at you, we know you're a Nigerian from the way you are dressed.
And I'm a Yoruba man. It's very obvious.
Yes, it is.
That's what they call cultural identity.
Yeah.
Now, cultural identity has about 5 elements. Your cuisine, what you eat. When you see a man eating amala, you know that he has a relationship with Southwest Nigeria. When you see a man eating tuwo, you know that he has a relationship with Northern Nigeria. When you see a man eat starch, you know that he has a relationship with Warri. You can feel it. That is what they call cultural identity. Your dress, your name, your language, your cuisine. Now, all of that, the British mentality, the British colonialism are taken away from us. Religion are taken away from us. So we are stripped of our cultural essentiality as a people. So we need to go back to the drawing boards and achieve cultural identity, national identity.
Okay, when you now fuse, your cultural identity and your national identity, how then can a Nigerian who now knows his cultural identity, national identity, begin to bring this to the foreburner to bring about national development?
Okay, I'll now tell you. When you are proud of what you have, you are proud of who you are, you'll be proud of your lineage. You'll be proud of your ancestral lineage. Until that time, you cannot develop, you cannot innovate. Even science that we are talking about, even religion we are talking about is a culture of a people, whether we like it or not. Islam is a culture of the Arabs. Christianity is the culture of the Hebrews, Jews, and all of that. Now, national development can be attained when you are proud. For instance, Italy experiences close to 80 million visitors a year, tourists. What are they going there to do? Because some people have kept their heritage properly. It is why you have flown from America to come and see the heritage.
Absolutely.
Don't we have enough cultural heritage sites in Nigeria to attract visitors and tourists?
But the question
is, we have not realized that we should put enough budget here as a people, as a nation, to attract the world. In 2019, Italy had 64 million visitors. Imagine if every of those visitors spent $5,000. Is equal to 320 billion US dollars. What is our national budget? I'm asking you. So, we are not a people that should suffer. We are not a people that should be poor. We are poor because of our ignorance of what we have as a people. I can tell you that freely. I have been saying that in the last 1 year that I became executive secretary of NICO. And I will not pass through NICO without engraving my name in gold. If I leave NICO tomorrow, they will remember me for one thing or another. So therefore, I said to myself, culture is not something we should be ashamed of. So we had 4 programs we came into NICO with. First of all, we need to understand that, okay, we need to teach our young people the essentialities of our culture. If they do not know that, the future will be bleak.
How is the Institute going to leverage on that?
Simple.
Okay.
The Institute had a training school. When I studied the circumstance, I realized that no, it's not a matter for training school. It's a matter for national overhaul, mental and psychological overhaul. So, we started with Nigerian Academy for Cultural Studies. When you leave secondary school, you get an admission to such a school, Cultural Studies, with campuses in 8 political zones of Nigeria. They teach you culture. They teach you comparative culture. Do not see yourself as being inferior to a British, an Italian, or a Spanish.
Sorry, Ashimba. Those trainings now, are they done in English or they're done in various dialects?
What is important in communication is to ensure that the person you are communicating to is able to understand it.
Okay.
That is the most important. It doesn't matter the language you are conveying the communication with. But there is no Nigerian who does not understand his dialect or his local language.
I say this, there's a question that I'm keeping to. You know, in her intro, she talked about the fact that we have different ethnic groups and various dialects. And I think that one of the things on Nico's front burner was talking about having to have a national language as part of, you know, bringing about national development. So I say this to bring you to having to talk about having a national language. And then if we talk about a national language now, are we talking about saying that Igbo should be the national language, or Yoruba or Efik, or are we picking different dialects from these 250 ethnicities to be able to bring up a national language?
My sister, the issue of national language is a totally different kettle of fish. But let's address it since you have brought it. When you hear this cliche, our strength is in our diversity, what do you think they are talking about? They don't even understand the meaning. They just use it as an expression and they move on. For your diversity to become a strength for you as a people, there are elements that must be fulfilled. One of those elements is a mono language. And this was why they started with the idea of Wazobia. Wazobia got truncated for reasons I can't lay my hands on now. I've been struggling.
Because I was going to ask that. There was an attempt with
yeah,
Wazobia.
I have been struggling to understand why Wazobia died. But to get a one language for Nigeria is not a big deal as we think. My institute today has 4 cardinal projects, which we hope by 2025 we will have budget to cover these projects. Once we have that, we move on to another phase of our idea developing, of our ideas development. Then we will now begin to talk about that you have spoken about, one national language for Nigeria. How do we get it? Can we get it? If you see the way Nigeria has come, you will understand that we're actually a highly related and interconnected people. I'll tell you what I mean. We have 3 main languages in Nigeria: Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo. If you pick Yoruba of Southwest, you realize that the Kogi state has Yoruba sufficiently. The Igalas, sufficiently. Kwara state has Yoruba. In fact, 56% of Kwara is Yoruba.
Okay.
Edo has enough Yoruba. Delta has Yoruba. Right?
Yes.
Let's leave that as that first. You talk about Igbo, you realize that Delta has Igbo. Apart from the 5 Igbo speaking states, Port Harcourt, River State, they have Igbo.
Okay.
Cross River, they have Igbo. Edo, they have Igbo. Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Hausa. Practically almost all the 19 northern states speak Hausa. So, to fine-tune or to harness these interconnected link pains is very simple. We made attempt to gather 19 professors of sociology, language, history, and all of that, and say, okay, look at this project and see how we can achieve it in 12 calendar months.
Okay.
And they told me it is simple and possible. It may be expensive, but it's achievable. Fortunately for us, in one of our programs, we had a message from the governor of Bayelsa, who volunteered to say, I will host that conference to develop this idea. Okay. If we speak one language in Nigeria, a man leaves Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, and he speaks a language that they understand in Maiduguri, he automatically becomes their brother. If you go to the remotest part of the world, say Acapulco, for instance, and you find somebody who could speak your language, that fellow automatically becomes your brother or sister.
Absolutely.
You want to even live with that person for that moment. Language is a strong factor in bringing unity and love.
Okay, so but I want to get a clarity, because just like I'm wondering in my head, I'm sure a lot of Nigerians will be wondering, where do you begin to start from? You're dealing with millions of Nigerians, more than 200 million. It's a language, if it's coined by the experts, everybody will have to start from the basics. Everybody will have to start from the scratch. How would that be achieved?
When there's a way, when there's a will, there's a way. If we feel is a problem, how did we get to learn science? How did we get our children to become, first-class materials in science? Even in Chinese language. How do people go to China and 6 months, they speak Chinese language? What I'm saying to you is that once a curriculum is developed and the curriculum is thrown to elementary school, by the time a child is from primary 1 to 6, he already starts to speak the language in minimal way. By the time you go to secondary school, it's expanded. By the time we have this kind of training and curriculum management for 15, 20 years, the whole Nigeria will speak this language.
Beyond schools.
Even beyond school. How did my grandmother, who never went to school, how did she manage to speak Pidgin English? How did my father, who was a trader in Dosumu in Lagos, manage to speak Pidgin English?
Okay, let's not
So
dwell
what I'm
in
saying
the-
to you
okay.
is that interactions. There's a way I can achieve it if I have the resources.
Okay, then let's bring you back to the training institute you're talking about. You're talking about, the plans that, are set out in the institute there, and the long-term plan to be able to achieve this, so that it's like catching the younger generation and beginning to build the mindset of their identity and, how they can bring about national development. So let's hear
Our journey should start from our young people. Our population is predominantly filled with young people. Our journey for cultural renaissance, national renaissance, should start from the young people. How will we do that? We already have a school. If that school can take 1,000 students per campus, we will graduate 8 to 10,000 students a year. They are young adults. The moment your psychology, your cultural psychology is already enhanced.
Okay.
And once your cultural psychology is right, your state of mind will be right. Your sense of pride will be right. Once your sense of pride is right, then you can innovate, you can develop, you can understand, you can do business, you can mingle. A citizen that does not have cultural pride can never be productive for himself. He will only be working for salary for the rest of his life, and he can never be anything substantial. Take it or leave it. It's a fact. Let the young people be proud in themselves. It is not about I have money or I don't have money. It's about I can touch the sky. It's about self-confidence. You cannot build self-confidence in anybody if he does not understand himself. You first of all must like yourself for you to like someone else.
Of course.
Or for someone else to like you. To like yourself, you must love who your parents are. For you to love your parents, you must understand them and empathize with where they are coming from. That is what culture gives to you. Whether your background is poor or rich, if you have the right cultural essentialities, you'll be proud in whoever you are. That pride is lost in our young people. That's why they want to behave like British. They want to behave like Americans. They want to wear jeans and sag it on their waists. They want to speak phonetics. They don't have to.
So
if I speak Yoruba to you and it doesn't suit you, you will force yourself to learn my language the more I force myself to learn your own language.
So Otumba, besides the institute, now what other things can stakeholders also do to begin to make this impact from their own quarters, in terms of making the younger people know who they are, have a right mindset, and also embrace their identity as Nigerians to be able to make impact?
let us imagine that the scope of the school will be too small for a population of 230 million people. We have perfected a strong online presence. You can sit in your home and learn about our culture. Now, it is not just about learning about culture. It is about trying to evolve a developmental trend from cultural studies. How does that happen? I'll tell you. We have two major departments that are very, very essential. Cultural technology department, cultural pharmacology department. What is cultural technology department going to offer? If you go to China, things are being manufactured in homes and they bring it to the center. Most of the shoes you buy from China, most of the things you buy from China are made by individuals. A table like this is a machine that can convert things and make things. There are many things in our environment, natural, that can be converted to industrial use. Why do we need to import beads? Why do we need to import spoons? Why do we need to import little things? It is one of those things that is disturbing and destroying our economy. We spend so much money on little things we can do here. So the cultural technology department seeks to understand our immediate environment, whatever can be. Look, 20% of the footballs made in the world is leather from Kano.
Even the shoes, the leather.
And the leather from Kano, they refuse to label it leather from Nigeria. You have Italian leather, you have Spanish leather. Our leather is so superior, but they refuse to label our leather Nigerian leather. Why? Because we are not proud in ourselves.
Otumba, you know.
So what does it take to turn leather into shoe, belt, or bag? The same leather has been taken to Spain and Italy, and it's called Louis Vuitton, whatever you call it, and you girls wear it. You buy $1,000, $2,000, and you are proud of it. The human hair you wear is made by simple cottage technology in China.
So it's good we're talking about technology, and I know just recently the Institute is leveraging on this digital infrastructure, the launch of the global platform, Dudu Plugs. Now, tell us how that will work, especially carrying the young people along.
So now, you say Nigeria is poor. People, yes, obviously, it's not about they say, it's obvious. Nigeria is poor. But we're not supposed to be poor. We only need men of conscience, men of knowledge, men of will to turn Nigeria around. And it's simple. But sabotage, because of greed, a man accumulates 30 billion naira. What will a man do with that kind of money? Really, between you and I. But for some reason, we just go on and on, stealing money that we don't even need in our generation. So, okay, now, because of that, we said, okay, what can we do to deepen our cultural diplomacy and earn substantial income for the people of Nigeria? If you look at Facebook, for instance, Facebook is not a country's property, is one human being that, Facebook makes close to $1.4 billion US per day. Okay. The culture of Nigeria has a lot of fans and enthusiasts across the world. Let me talk about culture of Yoruba. Culture of Yoruba alone accounts for between 420 to 450 million humans across the world.
Otumba, I'll have to hold our thoughts there. We have to take a break. And when we come back, I expect you to fill us in on these innovative means to explore that culture. Let's take a break.
What are we doing as a nation to, first of all, settle our teeming populace, especially
NTA's political package, with a third eye on the nation's political scene? I am Fisa Ogunfuyi. Welcome.
You have to be very careful giving space to people who are obviously sponsored to further the agenda of some other groups.
Please remember, a lot of questions in a closed door sessions. some of these issues, some of the problems bedeviling of their.
In fact, between June 1st and July 17, 19-point-something billion has left the coffers of the NDDC.
I can say my constituency, they need everything because we don't have anything.
A method for digital literacy is a bot that you can use, you can interact to learn more about digital literacy.
Hello, it's our pleasure to have you join us on platform. I'm Ruth Aguwele.
What is the yardstick for measuring everybody's moral integrity? It's critical at this point in time.
How daunting has that been for the Institute in getting them abreast with all the legislative procedures?
The fact remains that one training workshop is not enough.
Thank you for staying tuned. The conversation is on nursing culture for national development. Otumba, before we went on that break, I wanted you to share with us the whole idea behind Doodle Plugs, the innovative platform that was created to showcase Nigeria's rich cultural heritage.
Okay, and I'll be very brisk and sharp about it.
Okay.
We reason that and in spite of all our richness in culture, why is everybody feeling that Nigeria is a poor nation? So we said, okay, let us first of all put our culture at the center of the world. Let people have the opportunity from any part of the world to access our culture. Look at it. Our culture is so wide and diverse, from language to literature to heritage and all of that. So we decided to say, okay, let us come up with something that will give the world opportunity to access us easily, so that we speak about ourselves by ourselves, and not a question of some narratives being hijacked or being created by some set of human beings. So we started Doodle Plug. Doodle Plugs is a global digital platform that houses our culture in general. We expect that Doodle Plugs will witness, or we have close to about between 500 to 1 billion people in 1 or 2 years. Now, if that happens, the projection is that Nigeria should be able to realize close to 15 to 20 billion US dollars per annum from Doodle Plugs. The purpose of Doodle Plugs, the reasoning behind Doodle Plugs are actually two. One, to deepen our cultural diplomacy. Let the world see us for who we are. And to boost our economy in some way, add to our GDP as a people.
And you're also attracting tourists.
Greatly, greatly, greatly. So therefore, Doodle Plugs was entered into with a Nigerian American company. And we got into that arrangement, and the arrangement is such that the company, in partnership with NICO, Nigerian government, will build infrastructure. Because, of course, if we begin to say we should get Nigerian money to build infrastructure, it's running into millions of US dollars. Yeah. So therefore, we will provide content. There is no content, there is no Doodle Plug without content.
Yes.
So NICO will supply content, to which extent we are building our infrastructure locally, cameras and all of that to film events, festivals in every part of Nigeria. Wow. So all our stations will be equipped with cameras, editing suites, and once we video these events, these festivals from any part of Nigeria, we edit properly and we upload onto that platform. Okay. The world can access it. Now, it is not a question of somebody saying Nigerians are criminals, Nigerians are 419, Nigerians are Yahoo. They can see Nigeria for what Nigeria is. That's Doodle Plug. Doodle Plug gives us economic benefit, adds to GDP of Nigeria, deepens our cultural diplomacy, improves our tourism attraction.
And also the image of the country is projected.
That's cultural diplomacy.
And then when you look at this and then you want to have a feel of it, you take a flight and then you're in, and you know, that's still
very
talking
good. That's about
tourism.
doodoo plugs. Do you know that, as a matter of fact, we cannot progress as a people politically, legislatively, even diplomatically, without actually allowing our legislators to understand the essentialities of our culture? How do you make laws for a people whose culture you do not understand perfectly? So we created what we call legislative cultural orientation retreats, and we have advanced, you know, the course of this to the National Assembly, the Senate President, the SGF, and all of that, to say, okay, let us have an opportunity to do 1 week, 2 weeks retreat for legislators, so that we can, you know, we can keep them abreast of our culture and cultural nuances. Now, it will help their job. 90% of the laws we operate in Nigeria are predicated on British tradition. You know, we need to begin to put some originality into our lives. Therefore, that is one project we are pursuing. Not only legislator, even the diplomats. We are going to say, for all our diplomats coming to Nigeria, they should be given the opportunity to learn about our culture sufficiently. Now, top policymakers in the civil service, we have written to the SGF to say, please make it a 2-week mandatory course retreat for top government officials from level 14, level 15 or so, because our act actually permits us to be a focal agency for inculcating and incorporating cultural understanding among policymakers. Those are the kind of things we are putting together. We need to realign and recalibrate Nigeria for effective economic benefit. Economic benefit will not come if the groundwork is not well done. Now, we find ourselves in a situation whereby 64 years later, we're just doing the groundwork. That's not a problem. America is over about 200 years old. We can't compare ourselves. British is almost forever. Britain is almost forever. So therefore, that is part of the things we are trying to do to straighten those bends with which we inherited from colonial masters, our frontline politicians, 64 years later.
But you know, it's even good that the trajectory is changing, because we hear NICO is, you know, into partnership with the Chinese government, you know, to looking at the Nigerian Academy for Cultural Studies, the newly introduced Cultural Technology Studies, the kind of support which will promote cultural exchange. Now, tell us how that is enhancing the preservation of our cultural heritage.
The world saw China from the doldrums. They were able to reorganize themselves, and they came to the fore. 50, 60 years ago, China was not a world power. Today, there is no country in the world that does not reckon with China.
Yeah.
They turned their population into advantage.
Yes.
So, we now said, okay, Cultural Technology Department, we want to rely on China. We want not to rely, we want to work with China. So that once we say, okay, here we contacted some consultants, some professors, to take the commonest things within our environment, look at what they can turn into, the process of turning them into finished product, industrial use, or, you know, household use. Now, they've given us the template of what to do. We have put it in our budget proposition for 2025. We hope it will be approved. Once it's approved, we then say, okay, fine. Cultural Technology Department 2 in Nigeria, maybe one in Lagos, one in another place.
Yeah.
Now, we now say, okay, look within the environment, everything from bamboo to palm front to everything. Let's convert it to things that can be of benefit. It will reduce our rate of import.
Yeah.
It will reduce our rate of chasing after dollars. It will improve our domestic economy. Now, West Africa will experience a boost in its economy. We can then export. Okay, we can, of course, export. That's what we're trying to do. There's another one we call cultural pharmacology. What is cultural pharmacology? you realize that Nigeria spent close to $753 million US, a year on Panadol, Fensic, and little antibiotics. Why? These plants have the potency of healing some of these little ailments. We just need to understand how it can work. Now, the pharmacists, the pharmacologists, they've done so much research in this respect. It's just that the researches are not translated into reality, practical reality.
Okay, sorry, let me cut in, Otumba, because when you talk about that, the issue now, you're talking about traditional medicine, and, some of them, actually, we know that's talking about culture. Without having to test them, you know that, okay, fine. But the thing now is, what quantity do you know to take per time?
Pharmacists are now trained to understand how herbs can heal. Of course, they know. You see, once you do chemical analysis of a particular plant, you know the properties, you know the chemical potency of a plant. Now, when this plant is to be used for healing, they will determine dosage. It is not those days, some 40, 50 years ago, when a typical babalawo, a typical herbalist does not know measurements. We've gone past that level, please. We've gone far away from that level. We are now at a level where, traditional medicine is now recognized by government. But they have a board.
But you mentioned
and they are educated.
Okay, Otumba, you mentioned a challenge, a constraint indirectly. You said they're at a stage of, they've done the research, but they're still constrained. So what are those constraints? Is it paucity of funds?
The constraint is political will.
Okay.
I will put whatever it takes. I would find my way to discuss with the president of Nigeria to give us a backing. Because it's going to help us. It's going to engrave his name in gold. So we must ensure that Nigeria becomes self-sufficient. It is possible.
Inward. Huh? Looking inward.
Yes, it is possible. It is not. See, the kind of leadership laziness Nigeria had experienced in the past is appalling. We can reverse the situation.
So how do we return to, some of those cultural values and all of that to begin to use it to, move to the next
Talking
level?
about cultural value. Cultural value is a psychosocial mechanism issue. And I'll tell you what I mean. Nigeria earmarks so much budget in building bridges and roads. Once they finish the bridge and they go to their house to sleep, some people that are not well trained in culture, they are not culturally upright young boys, they go back to the bridge and remove the metals. Right?
Yes.
So what are we saying? We must tell our people what they call cultural renaissance, cultural value. When I was a young man, I greeted my father with my chest on the floor. I can't remember ever looking at my father's eyeballs. I just cannot remember if I ever did. Why? We were trained to have absolute respect for our parents. Yeah. And whatever they said was law. Cultural value. If the cultural value of Nigeria has been properly upheld, the issues of banditry, corruption, kidnapping will not happen.
But it starts,
can I tell you something?
It starts from the home, Otumba.
That's exactly the issue.
Yes.
But the point is, even the parents we have today do not even understand. The parents we have today are modern parents.
They're not questioning where some wealth or things
are
coming
When
from.
you arrest
where did we miss it and how can we go back?
That's exactly the issue. When you arrest a thief today, when I say a thief, I mean a man who has embezzled money in his ministry. By the time you free him, his people will come out with horses, good fine cars to say, yes, we know him, he's our thief. So, how then do you build a society that is filled with right sanity? So, we're saying to you that we have a plan in my agency to mount a serious campaign on bring back our cultural value. Some of these things take time. Because we didn't do them at the appropriate time, we are now going to spend so much time and money to achieve them. We can't continue like this. When a man gets to an office and before you call Jack Robinson, he's already taking 20 billion naira, depriving children of poor people from getting properly educated. That's why you have a quantifiable number of almajiris everywhere.
But you know, to achieve this, Otumba, you will need the support and collaboration from other agencies like the NOA if you want to push this campaign to the grassroots, because you are touching the hearts of the people. So you have to take it to communities, not just at the urban centers.
Are you asking me the methodology?
I'm asking you how you're working towards partnering.
I am a professional advertising practitioner.
Okay.
When you talk campaigns, it is what I have done for 30 years of my life. What I mean is, once we get the right budgets, approval to mount a campaign is not a problem. But the truth remains that the mind of the typical Nigerian has to be touched positively. The behavioral pattern of our people, how well has religion helped? If religion has not helped as substantially as we expect, let us look at culture. Because culture is actually supposed to play the same role.
Okay, I think what she was saying was about partnerships as in other agencies and, you know.
There is no way we can achieve all of this without adequate partnership with the right agencies. We're talking of cultural pharmacology. We must work with Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. We must work with Nigerian agency for, there's an agency for herbs and all of that. I have met with the DG once or twice. We have exchanged letters because we have actually called for memoranda. We have actually sent letters to a lot of people to contribute ideas. But we are championing this because it has a relationship with culture, and that's why it becomes an issue on our table. So we're not shying away from collaborations. The NOA and the NICO, we are Siamese twins. The DG of NOA is my brother. Now, when you say cultural orientation, national orientation,
it's in sync.
Very much so.
Because there's actually the value charter that the NOA just launched. That's why I asked that question.
That's why I'm saying to you that we can't achieve national identity without cultural identity. Culture will feed into nation.
Okay.
Because a nation is actually amalgamation of cultures.
Okay, Otumba, we're about to round off. As Nigerians await to see your vision materialize, and we are a people of culture, from what you have said, what is your message, to Nigerians on the need to harness that heritage that is sacred to us?
We should stop believing that except we appreciate foreign culture, we're not sophisticated. No. Every development that is ruling the world is a cultural idea of somebody. Albert Einstein that started electricity. There is nothing science has brought that was not available in our cultural understanding as a people 400, 500 years ago. We were, even medicine, traditional medicine, we were taking delivery of children. Look, I didn't know Panadol, Fensic until I was about 6 or 7. Anytime I felt sick, my grandfather would put some herbs in hot water, I drank, and that was okay. It was only until I started primary school, and this day I fell ill and they said they should take me to a dispensary or something, and they gave me 2 tablets, whitish stuff that I should swallow. Was my first time in life. So what I'm saying, there is nothing modernity has brought that was not existing in our culture. What just happened to us was the euphoria of colonization, civilization, education, Christianity, Islam that took away every essence of our people. My dear, unless with this kind of advocacy we are mounting, if this advocacy can be replicated in many more ways, it will catch up. And you see that today, everybody is wearing native. It wasn't like that when we were young. As a matter of fact, if you wore native some 35, 40 years ago, they will feel you are an illiterate.
That's what the NTA projects.
So, things are getting better today because our young people are now beginning to wear our fashion. They are beginning to eat our food. Why do you think Chinese restaurant became a global identity? Somebody pushed it intentionally. We need to begin to push ourselves. That is why the essence of cultural diplomacy. Let's push our culture to the center of the world.
Okay. Otumba, we'll leave the conversation there, but definitely not the advocacy. We'll continue to do our part as the media to project our rich cultural heritage. Thank you so much, Otumba Biodun Ajiboye. He's the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Institute for Cultural Orientation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We want to thank Gufan Shaji Ugwanyi, Arts and Culture Correspondent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful time.
All right, so we'll be in this course in harnessing culture for national development. As a Nigerian, who are you? What is your cultural identity? We must begin to look inward if we want to project for the future. There is no place like home. I'm Ruth Aguwele, and that's Platform.